we are going to give you a free preview of the type of thing you can expect from our somewhat inner courtyard. A while back, we were writing an essay on some of the symbolism and underlying occult themes in the film The Ninth Gate, and it started having a bit of a life of its own, branching out beyond essay form and instead turning into a short 40-page mini book. It's not our usual style to do film analysis or deconstructions, nor do we necessarily want to be known for doing them, and instead more being our filmmaker ourselves. But this film is a bit unique, so that's why it catalyzed a bit longer of a writing, which is so full of secret keys that we have decided to not give it out on a whim, but instead make it a standalone product for sale and download. So here goes a peek through the log. The Ninth Gate is a 1999 mystery noir thriller film directed, produced, and co-written by Roman Polanski. It was the film adaptation of the book The Dumas Club, written by Arturo Pérez Reverte. It's a bit of a polarizing film, often having a love-hate effect on viewers. Film critics, who are people who can't make a film themselves and just criticize others' works, mind you, generally hated it, leaving it with mostly negative reviews by both them and audiences. One amateur review said, "This movie is by far the worst I've ever seen. Cheesy, boring, lame, and tried too hard to be some sort of cool mystery. The real mystery is how Depp had a career after this horrendous film. A complete waste of time. 1 out of 10. It certainly has some slightly cheesy moments, yes, and some dated visual effect shots. But outside of that, this author personally couldn't disagree more. For it's really a phenomenally underrated film. A quite masterful piece of cinema, which functions on multiple layers with deep symbology and is extremely well thought out with almost Kubrickian-level foresight and planning in terms of its script and how all avenues of its production wove a tapestry of a much deeper story and mystery. I would personally even go so far to say it's one of my favorites, which to some extent is popcorn fluff, sure. Yet I have never gotten tired of watching it, and that says something with how undauntingly boring I find most movies. And there are tons of them coming at us these days with the advent of streaming platforms. So it's fair to say, in my eyes, it's a cult classic, no pun intended. Or should we say an occult classic, being somewhat unmatched in terms of its deeper ties to symbology. It also has massive importance in my own life, the reason of which will be revisited later. This analysis/deconstruction should reveal why this author thinks this about this work, and how you might want to revisit it again yourself. Of course, we will say the dumb phrase of spoiler alert, meaning the secrets and ending of the story will be revealed in this deconstruction. So absolutely watch the movie first if you have not yet and don't want to know the outcome of the ending. Yet, if you're listening to this, you likely are an uber fan of the film as well, and somewhat mystery revealed junkie, in which case you don't need to have watched it at all to listen to this. As a documentarian, I could have done the usual thing where I just grab clips from the film itself and talk over them. However, that is not the path of this deconstruction. This will instead solely be a work of writing and audio, with the only visuals associated being various art and the engravings from the film themselves. And it's been written after extensive viewings, interest, and research, highlighting the deeper underlying themes of what the film entails via my own personal experiences with the esoteric, meaning the inside, and the occult, meaning hidden. A deconstruction can be a very subjective experience, full of conjecture, opinions, misinformation, and or purposeful opposition or confusion. Yet one sign of a real student of practice is being able to read into things more than the average viewer might, to know the subtext of what's being said rather than just the text itself. Those who have more spiritual or occult or esoteric development in that regard really like this film, for they see deeper into it. Those who have little to none do not like it, because they are blind to most of it. They think the content of the film itself and everything this is about to go into is just rubbish, balderdash, and or twaddle. The film itself is property of Artisan Entertainment and is its own work of art. This separate writing, while discussing the film, can stand on its own and need no visual aids short of some of the supporting esoteric artwork and engravings themselves, which I have included in the written version of this document. Much like Hearts of Darkness, A Filmmaker's Apocalypse, which is an outstanding documentary film made by Eleanor Coppola about her husband and crew nearly killing themselves making the film Apocalypse Now, which many find as interesting as the film itself. Perhaps this deconstruction can strike a similar note for you as the Ninth Gate film does, being as compelling to read or listen to as watching the film over again with some fresh eyes. In terms of the helming of the film adaptation, say what you will about Polanski himself. He's had a very tumultuous life. Like so much of Hollywood, he is Jewish. Read Neil Gabler's book, An Empire of Their Own, on that subject. He lived through the Holocaust as a very young child, spent his formative years in foster homes under an adopted identity, broke into professional filmmaking, which is always a how the hell does one do that deeper story, and his second wife, Sharon Tate, and 4 friends were brutally murdered by being stabbed to death by members of the Manson family, while she was 8 months pregnant at the time, mind you. He later went on to drug and then butt rape a 13-year-old in a hot tub at Jack Nicholson's house in the Hollywood Hills, which was an ultra-gross pedo move, yes, and forever tainted his reputation as clearly a sex offender. One theory on that was he was likely being brownstoned, meaning blackmailed through pedophilia in exchange for positions of power, which, wakey wakey, is a ubiquitous occurrence in entertainment industries and in politics. That behavior should be admonished and abolished, but for like most if not all famous celebrities, when presented with this option in their careers, air quotes, they placate to it in order to be allowed through a new set of inner gates in the hierarchy. That's how fame works. For one must sell their soul to the psychopaths who run the world in order to achieve it and have a platform. The difference here is that this occurrence may have leaked out before he could be blackmailed for life regarding it. So to this day, he constantly has been avoiding a rape charge, which has no statute of limitations in the United States, and therefore he rarely leaves France. This could open a much larger discussion about not liking one's art based upon the artist's behavior. I'm inclined to find a somewhat middle ground on that, and at times be able to separate the two. Such as William S. Burroughs, a writer and visual artist and primary figure of the Beat generation, and a major postmodern author whose influence is considered to have affected a range of popular culture as well as literature, who, while high on Benzedrine and drunk on alcohol, shot his wife, Joan Vollmer, in the face, killing her, while trying to shoot an apple off her head in his own skewed form of a William Tell act. That unacceptable act doesn't mean that Naked Lunch is not a damn good novel, nor that Thriller isn't a brilliant song even though it was performed by someone who had a horribly abusive upbringing, was clearly a mentally ill kidfucker, and was obviously a genius musician, yet millions can still really enjoy his music. So regardless of Polanski the man, through all the crazy life turmoil and dumb personal life choices, one thing about his body of work is that he is a damn good filmmaker. The MacGuffin being an object, device, or event that is necessary to the plot and the motivation of the characters of the book and the film is another book, The 9 Gates of the Kingdom of Shadows, also known as Deus Umbrium Regis Novum Portus, the 9 Gates for short. Books inside a story can help give weight to a story. The book is said to be written by one Aristotorquia in Venice in 1666 and contains 9 woodcut engravings rumored to be copied from the apocryphal Della Melanachon, a book reportedly written by Lucifer himself. The 9 Gates of the Kingdom of Shadows is said to contain within its pages knowledge to raise the devil. The author was burned along with all his works in 1667. Outside of 3 copies known to have survived, all in private aristocratic libraries. One in Paris, France, owned by Baroness Kessler. One in Sintra, Portugal, in the Fargus collection. The other last known to be in the possession of Andrew Telfer, but recently sold to Boris Balkan, owner of One Balkan Press in the Big Apple. Good old NYC. Firstly, the name of the source, Della Melanachon, is a mixture of 2 Greek words, Dello, to summon, Melas, dark or black. The methodology to summon Lucifer dates from long ago, mentioned very sparsely and indirectly in the Bible, and quoted in the Corpus Hermeticum. The latter would be a giveaway to its fictional character, as the Hermeticum could not be further removed from demon worship. There are similar characters to Lucifer in other mythologies from long ago. In Egypt, there is a serpent god, Sata, who is said to be the father of lightning, and who likewise fell to earth. A Babylonian god, Zu, was also a lightning god who fell as a fiery flying serpent. Old names, especially in Latin, give even more heavy weight. Delambrium Regis Novum Portus just sounds like a legit book, doesn't it? The book itself is said to be derived from the Della Melanician, and is clearly surrounded by books that do exist. At the same time, fictional books can also be chock full of genuine historical characters, such as Roger Bacon and Giordano Bruno. Yet the book and the film's original author, Revert, leaves it to the expert reader's insecurity to see whether he will immediately recognize the Nine Gates as a fictional invention, or something that an expert might not have known about. This is always a brilliant puzzle in theater and cinema, where something fictional takes on the ethos of perhaps being real. Another 1999 film, The Blair Witch Project, did this extremely successfully, via its own brilliant marketing in which its official website featured a Fox police report as well as a newsreel-style series of interviews. These augmented the film's found footage device to spark debates across the internet over whether the film was a real-life documentary work or of fiction. During screenings, the filmmakers made advertising efforts to promulgate the events in the film as factual, including the distribution of flyers at festivals such as Sundance, asking viewers to come forward with any information about the missing students in the story. Because as any horror junkie knows, the dark side of us secretly kind of wants to watch a real snuff film. The film The Ninth Gate begins in a private library and/or study, where an old man, Andrew Telfer, sits robed at his desk. He signs a suicide note and proceeds to hang himself from a noose from a light on the ceiling. The noose around the neck and his slipper being removed from the left foot is related to the Masonic initiation ritual of the entered apprentice. The camera comes off his feet, shaking, struggling, and then going lifeless, and moves on to the point of his bookshelf where the Nine Gates of the Kingdom of Shadows book recently sat, prior to recently selling it, beginning a title sequence containing a camera fly-through of the Nine Gates, with the final ninth gate in the credits being a gate of light, foreshadowing the ending of the film. The protagonist, Dean Corso, played by Johnny Depp, respectively searches for the book, being hired by one Boris Balkan, owner of Balkan Press, who is played by Franklin Gela. The two head up to Balkan's private library in his building, the elevator code of which is 666. They enter a very high-end looking room, and he informs Corso that very few people ever step foot in this rare room. It feels a bit like a tiny modern version of a very secretive Vatican archives, with the same 666 code being required to enter a glass enclosure surrounding a series of books. A synchronicity in regards to 666 in the film is the year it was released, which was 1999, an unusual number in that it has the combo of 666 in it upside down as 999. Coincidence or something more? Balkan, of course himself being a bibliophile, informs Corso that all the books in the library have the same protagonist, not antagonist, mind you, the devil. Only the supreme masterpiece was missing, which is now in his possession, having recently been purchased from Andrew Telfer, who just committed suicide. Corso flips through the pages, the text of which are in Latin, and there are sporadic pages with engravings, meaning old drawn etchings created either by addition or subtraction. Engraving is one of the oldest and most important techniques in printmaking. These ones are not very... So there is your preview. Since it ended up being nearly a week of research and writing, in both a 40-page written PDF version and a nearly 90-minute long spoken word narrated version from the writing as well, you can find it through our store at nilesheckman.com under the title Traveling Through the Ninth Gate, available for the small price of $6.66.